Oi, 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 oi. Kyle, Memphis Grizzlies without Ja Morant win a not so exciting game, 98-91. Beat Toronto at home. I don't know, Kyle. What you got for me, man?
Not much. I think it is another one. I would like to see what their record is against the spread this year because I think this is yet another game the Raptors are favored, right?
Minus
So,
five was
so
what I
they're
last saw.
so they're going in all these games as favorites, it seems. So what are we not seeing? Because I'm kind of with that. I would have assumed them to be favorites tonight. I think they were rightfully favorites tonight, and there's clearly a major disconnect. It wasn't a rough start. Listen, it's been tough. There are only so many ways we can sugarcoat this, and the
Yeah,
year started
I tried to stay as
differently.
optimistic as I can. Yeah, the under was also tasty, but yeah, there's an arbitrage here. The Raptors are getting uh, a lot of love in the betting world, and they're not owning up to it. Um, Tough first quarter. That seems to kind of be our bread and butter now, where we like fall behind early and never really recover. The third quarter is where we do our damage, but by then it's almost too late already. Um, Where do you want to start? What stood out to you for offensively or defensively that really kind of amplifies this loss?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think um, it's easy to point to like the offense down the stretch was a little discombobulated. Like I would have liked to see Siakam and Fred get a little more action involved in the action towards the end of the game there, but felt like things were even out of reach at that point. So it's hard to really put your finger on something precisely that's wrong. Siakam, by the measure of the box score, didn't have a great night. I actually thought he was all right, and that's reflecting his plus minus. I think some of their best minutes came with him on the floor. Um, but there's just something off with the makeup of this team right now, and I know they're missing OG, and I know they're missing Gary Trent, but it feels like Raptors fans, myself included, are used to them pulling off victories under adverse circumstances like this. And this iteration of that Raptors team doesn't really seem to have it. And it's such a cliche to say like the guts or like whatever cliche you want to use, but they don't seem to have that it factor to overcome that adversity, it seems.
Yeah, that's reminiscent of the old Lowry DeRozan games where it was like clockwork. The fourth quarter came around and we and just couldn't pull it together. I think I mean the woes are our offense, right? Like that's pretty clear. We had another 91 points against and like it's you watch this offense in action, and one out of every five plays, you feel the flow, you feel the these guys coming together and making it work, and then we just kind of go into this rough ISO ball that guys not really understanding their role. I don't want to pick on Flynn, but Flynn should not be shooting 7 3-pointers, and if he is, he should be shooting them like the one he made, which is on the weak side wide open off of a play, right? Like that's why Flynn's out there. And I feel like guys, I mean, not all of them, but some of them are not figuring out their role on this team and how to supplement Siakam and Van Vliet, which is what we saw in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think Flynn, I'm fine with Flynn in theory taking 7 threes, but like it'd be nice if 4 or 5 of those were like wide open
Yeah,
threes and
not
not
at the top
off
of the
the
key.
dribble, yeah,
Yeah,
creation
yeah,
stuff because that should be delegated to someone who's frankly better at it. And it's just like it seems to be the story of this team is that like the tasks in which certain players excel at aren't being done by those players, and there's a lot of weird creation issues. I actually do think the bench. People are in the comments about the bench. Or I thought
Hey,
you
it
were
was
at the game.
25-25 bench points. Like that actually was one of the games where that wasn't really the problem.
Yeah. First of all, Oren's here. I thought, are you in like the press
He's in
box? I thought you
Masai's
went to the
office.
game. Oh, he's just smiling. Is this a still image?
Yeah,
Okay, he's gone. That's a great
that's super
image.
creepy.
Okay. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
so
yeah, go
basically,
ahead.
like, I was gonna say the bench wasn't actually that bad. In fact, the big run that the Raptors had in the third, the lineup, the 14-2 run, the lineup was Fred, Delano, Utah, Scotty, Achua. So,
My bench
um,
Bob, baby.
yeah, and Achua, I get started tonight, but in general, is a bench mob player when Birch is returned. So that's like three bench guys who, like, that was a great little lineup. Went on a really good run, took the Raptors back into the game. No complaints about that whatsoever. In fact, I actually really like that the balance of that lineup on both ends of the floor. And I think that part of the reason it worked is because there's clarity in terms of like shot distribution and hierarchy when you have two starters out there in Scotty and Fred with those bench guys, especially bench guys like Utah and Delano, who have no intention of creating off the dribble
Right.
for themselves, really.
Or Utah, who's like, you know, he's the one guy really that passes without like a millisecond of the ball in his hands. And same when he shoots, like he knows when he's open, he jacks. He knows how to reverse the ball. And you know, I find that our lack of Alvin was talking about our lack of north south to the rim, which is just we got selfish team times 4. Leach, if you're gonna put it in 4 times, you better super chat it for $2.
We're charging per comment now.
Yeah, but I mean, the north south is the big problem. I mean, that's you know that's every team's like goal is to get to the rim. But I think a lot of that is the ball just sticks, and there's not the ball reversal. When we do succeed, it's that like getting to that second level, kicking it. Even right there, like Siakam doesn't even really get to the rim, but he does enough to draw and kick. And when you have those moments, but then you swing off of that and then drive again, that's when things start driving. And to your point, it just feels like guys are trying to get their own, you know?
Yeah, and Brady said the bench sucked the rest of the game. Whatever. I think like basketball is a game of runs. They were out there for a big run, and that's really all you can ask from the bench. I'm not asking the bench to win the game as if they were the starters. I think the bench had a good night. I don't think this is a story of the bench. I actually think that the rotations were pretty accurate. The bench had a pretty good night. I could we can quarrel about whether Malachi should have closed the game over Svi or Delano. Um, I think they need his shooting out there,
Yeah.
and that's why Nurse trusts him. And the key to unlocking this team and a lot of the bench stuff is going to be whether they can make those Malachi and Fred backcourt pairing lineups work, because that was such a staple of the Nurse teams for years was Lowry Van Vliet backcourt lineups where they have two guys who are in theory tremendous on ball creators for others, playmakers, short guards who can really run an offense. That worked so well with Lowry and Van Vliet. And I the pairing as of right now with Flynn and Van Vliet doesn't really seem to be uh, tremendously how effective. I'll say I'm trying to be as nice as possible here, um, but there is something to be said about like these guys need to play together to learn how to be playing well together.
Right.
So these minutes have to come at some point.
And that's basically what I'm talking about. And you know, like Tom saying, bring in Dragic, and I mean that's the difference between a veteran presence and a second year guy is that Dragic knows when to be the on the ball attacker and when to be the spot up shooter, and Flynn just kind of his role thus far in the season is to when he plays is to come on and generate shots. But when he's getting extended minutes and he's filling the SVI position, it's not for him to be at the top of the key kind of jack, right? Like, and so I guess it's going to come with time. And really, what this all boils down to is our bench. The guys that we want playing off the bench are starting, and the guys that probably wouldn't necessarily get minutes are playing more minutes than we otherwise would. So, I mean,
One more thing on Flynn, and I hate to do this because this is just like it's gonna be a stomach ache, but Desmond Bane, let me check the box score here.
oh, don't do it. Don't do it,
Desmond
man.
Bane was picked number 30 in last year's draft, and Flynn, I believe, was picked number 29. Bane, 8 for 16, 23 points, 5 for 9 from three, closed the game and had some big buckets down the stretch. This guy could have been a Raptor. That he fits a similar uh, profile, like skill wise, that Flynn did, except for he's 5 inches taller. Um, and so again,
And 12 inches wider.
yeah, exactly. Again, it's hard to say, and Masai is still the best executive in the league, but that was a mistake. Bane would be incredible on this team, and Flynn looks like he shouldn't be in the rotation and probably won't be once the injury crisis subsides.
I want to go to Van Vliet because it was one of those rare moments, particularly in the fourth quarter, where he ceased to exist offensively. He was 5 for 10 in the first half. He was 1 for 3 in the second half. This wasn't even like a lack of hitting shots. He just didn't really. He wasn't really involved in the offense, which maybe ties into our Flynn conversation. I don't know. We went to Siakam a lot, which made sense. Like he was making work. He was 5 for 10 in the second half, but maybe this loss is just attributed to the fact that we didn't run more through Freddie. He was having his way in the mid range in the first half.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating. I can't explain to you how frustrating it is to see Fred playing 42 minutes and taking 13 shots. It's like that is just so brutal that you're going to work him like this again. He's playing, I would imagine, more minutes than almost anyone else in the league, and yet he's not heavily involved. So what is he out there for? Because it doesn't make any sense to use the guy who's basically your best player or your second best player. That's based on someone's personal preference, but one of your two best players as a floor spacer down the stretch. That's not an intelligent way to operate an offense.
Yeah.
So to that point, maybe they do miss Chris Finch. Minnesota looks good, and Minnesota looks good in the same way that the Raptors were looking good last year, in like a Finchian way, if you will.
Yeah, lots of flow, lots of speed. Maybe he gassed. Like maybe this is just one of those games where he put it all out there on the second floor or second in the first half in the second quarter, and then just kind of dwindled. Connor mentioned that he was doubled in the fourth. That's fair enough, but I still think you can get plays to get him open, to get him into actions.
Well, also good NBA offenses love getting double teams. Like effective NBA offenses are licking their chops at the prospect of getting a double team because they can work a wide open shot out of that. They're playing 4-on-3 the rest of the court. I mean, like if the Raptors are a good offense, like they have the tools to be, and Fred's getting double teamed, that should be something they're able to work through, and that should be a net positive for their offense in general, because these are players who, these are highly skilled offensive players for the most part. The guys are like won championships. So what's going on here?
Yeah, so Lewis, I saw this earlier. Like Brooks was in Freddie's shorts for a lot of this game, and that's a smart strategy. Memphis, Fred was just running the show in the first half. Yeah, Connor mentions him out. Yeah, yeah. The thing is that Memphis was also 10 for 34 from three. It's not like they were hitting more buckets than us. We were 10 for 39. Like it wasn't that much of a difference. I will say that like we had uncharacteristically 21 turnovers, which is and early on too. I think we had like 11. Actually, I have it here, but it was in the first quarter alone. It was 10 to 2 on points off of turnovers. It was 11-4 by the end of the first half in turnovers. We had 11. Memphis had 4. So like that it kind of looked like we came out of the gates, or it did look like we came out of the gates soft, rebounding, litmus mentions, and just kind of like lack of energy, smart passing. So, and you can't do that against any NBA team. You can't just come out kind of like la-di-da-di-da and expect for everything to be okay. And I don't know, maybe it was just because Ja wasn't playing that they were overly confident.
Yeah, but I think that like these guys, like when you play at the NBA level, there are like 5 teams in which you can just like lackadaisically show up against when you're a
And,
team of the Raptors caliber. Like,
and
okay, if you're
apparently
the Brooklyn
Detroit's
Nets,
not one of them.
yeah, exactly. No, if you're Detroit's a whole different story because of the Casey situation. But we're talking like the Kings, like that tier of teams where you can just like show up, whatever. The Kings, right before they fire Luke Walton, no less. But the Grizzlies, especially where Brooks is a core member of their team, he's from Toronto. He's definitely amped up, gonna have a big night. They play hard for Taylor Jenkins. This team has like an identity that's like a hardworking type of mindset. So the Grizzlies aren't a team where you can just like show up and expect an easy win because they're missing their best player. And the Raptors, I don't think that there are many teams in the league that the Raptors can have that mindset with.
No, and you have a guy like Steven Adams who gives you, 8 boards. He's such a big body in there. We lost by 10 points in the paint. Jaren Jackson finally showed up. I mean, he's been averaging 14, 5, and 1 assist a game. Granted, he had only 1 assist again, but he had 5 blocks. He was 8 for 14 with 25 points. Like Jaren Jackson exploded in this game, which that's on us as well. Like it's not like there's that many options where we can't focus on Jaren Jackson and slow him down.
Yeah,
Oren,
You guys.
he's back. He's upstairs.
Yeah, I'm back.
are you
I'm
in
back
the
for just a minute here, but
you in the
did we talk about how
executive
embarrassed?
suite?
Did we talk about how embarrassing that was yet?
No, well, in general, yeah, but like, give us your thoughts. Give us a concise version of how embarrassing it was.
I'm looking for the second chance points, but in the first half, that's what like killed the Raptors. So the Grizzlies had 18 offensive rebounds, like you guys were talking about. Jaren was a big part of that, and every offensive rebound, it felt like they scored like every time they got an offensive rebound, and this is just like an ongoing problem now with Kem Birch out. There's really
Yeah.
no way, and especially because OG's out too, they can't kind of rely on like length across the board to make up for the lack of a center. And obviously you can only play Precious so many minutes, especially when he's in more and more foul trouble because Kem Birch isn't available to play.
And
It's just like a
Siakam foul
cycle.
trouble too.
Yeah, it's a cycle right now that's really, really bad. But like regardless of all that, this is a terrible, terrible loss. The Grizz at home without
Yeah,
Ja Morant. You just
and I gotta say, like, I don't even know if they could rely on a bunch of long guys to, really protect the rim or rebound when OG and everyone else are healthy in general. Like, this is just a problem that's endemic to the team. And you're right, they do miss Kem Birch. The center minutes are stretched very, very thin, with Precious being the only real big around. But there's something else to this, surely. 91 points against a Grizzlies team.
20, to answer your question, Oren, 26-17 on second chance points.
Okay, and 26 out of 98 points, that's a lot of points, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
big percentage. But can you just pin that post again? Because like I'm writing about this right now, and I think it'll be up tomorrow. And like I really don't think that the issue that everyone is. I think it's really easy to look at this team and go, they need a 7-footer. That's the issue. Get a big prodding 7-footer who grabs, rebounds, and protects the rim, and they'll be good. Like you look into it, when Precious and Kem are both available this season, they're 7-5, and they're a good defensive rebounding team. But the issue is like more than anything, I think if fans want to complain about the roster construction, it shouldn't be we need a 7-footer. It should be they need a depth center so that when one of these guys is injured, they can still have 2 bigs on the floor or in the game for a full 48 minutes. Because like Kyle said, they cannot rebound when they're small, even with like the length across the board when OG and everyone is healthy. They still haven't been able, like it's a laughable amount of defensive rebounding when they don't have a center on the floor. But like to me, Kem and Precious both fit the system really, really well defensively. They're both decent centers. Like, I don't see the need to go like spend crazy for like a 7-footer who's gonna like not be able to play the system and only drop just because he can protect the rim and rebound, when actually when these guys are all healthy, they're fine at doing those things. So I think this is an issue of health, and I think it's an issue of not having a third center on the roster to plug in when they're unhealthy.
Yeah, I do actually like. I think that the third center really fixes the defensive rebounding issue, and even fixes like maybe they can grab a couple second chance points, because like at this point the Raptors offense will take what it gets. But none of the players who are in the big rotation right now for the Raptors are tremendous rim protectors, and all of the problems that have been identified on defense, the corner threes, the overhelping, etc., are kind of, in my mind, stems from a lack of rim protection. The overhelping, the helping off the corners is a byproduct of having no real rim protection. The like slow rotations are a byproduct of not having rim protection, because you're stuck between like having to help in the paint as a wing player, having to help in the paint, and having to help to the wing/corner. Like, so the real problem with that is you don't just like create a rim protecting center who can move and like isn't a complete nothing on offense out of thin air. That's going to take serious like draft capital or like player movement to get. So the simple fix, and the one that will be an improvement, is third center. The fix that like alters the defense in general, that alters the future of this team, is a rim protector. But that doesn't, those aren't cheap. Like, you're not going to Walmart and pick up a rim protector.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. Like, down the line, that is what this team needs to get over the hump to become like from a good team to like real contenders. But right now, that's not what we should be focusing on, like you said, because that's a really like hard thing to get in. And like we got with Marc Gasol, they got him 6.5 years into their build to a championship. So like there's patience for that. Anyways, I gotta go. Thanks, guys. Later.
Peace. Coming in hot.
Way better than his first cameo, I have to say.
He came in like is like biting a jalapeno pepper underneath the cheese that you had no idea was there.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Okay. The third center is a nice to have. And when you have injuries and you have a smaller like rotation of players, it makes more sense. Like Flynn works really well with the true big, because of that pick and roll, and because he's so small, and you have that kind of like counterbalance. But you saw in the third quarter what this bench unit's supposed to be, without a big, right? And like I think that's a positive we can take from this game, which is that what was the lineup you read? Like Banton, Utah.
It was Fred. Well, this is like not in order of position. This is just sort of in order of. This is how I thought the vibe went. Fred, Banton, Yuta Watanabe, Scotty Barnes, Precious Achiuwa.
Yeah,
they won a 14-2 run. It was an incredible sequence, and you're right. That is like the platonic ideal of this Nurse system. They were flying around, they were rebounding well, their rim protection was adequate. That's just the best that this unit could be.
So I don't want to hear about Jonas Valanciunas' 7 threes. I don't want to hear about Christian Wood. I don't give a shit about Dwight Powell. I want to see this team in full action, and we haven't seen it yet because of injuries. And I just think that's like what this comes down to. Now you can pick apart some of the small parts tonight, which I think are concerning, like our lack of offensive flow, like the turnovers early. Like that's the kind of stuff we can analyze. But I think as far as like roster management and scheme goes, like we're just not able to execute yet because we just don't have our guys in place. Like OG Anunoby is an all-star defender. He's like arguably our second best player, and we don't have him. So it's like kind of hard to evaluate everything that's going on right now. And we've seen these guys handle bigs in the past, like Embiid's the symbolic example, but last year, we can do that, and I think we have enough of those kinds of guys to hinder bigger dudes.
Yeah, I want to ask, like, does Nurse bear like any blame though? Because this is his system. These are his rotations. The bench isn't working. Um, at what point do we point the finger at Nurse? And I'm gonna say like, I'm. It's certainly not now, and I don't think he bears much blame at all. But I think there's a good argument for, uh, him being uh, not necessarily like on the hot seat, but like in contention for the reason this bench unit is so bad.
Yeah, but I think it's offense. Like I don't love what I'm seeing out there. It's like we talk about this every game. It's like there are obvious exploitations. I mean, even Alvin said it. Like Melton, I forget Melton's first name. Fuck, D'Anthony Melton. Like he's guarding Barnes. Like there should be so much emphasis on finding that exploitation and going at it. And we did it a little bit when Siakam was hot. We went at him, but I just don't think there's enough design going on to find those exploitations.
Yeah, and I asked this for this comment to be pinned because this is like something that's sort of been on my mind. It's like I think that I'm going to preface the statement by saying Nurse should 100% keep his job for the Raptors indefinitely, for Team Canada definitely, but there's something to be said about Nurse is like a great AP calculus teacher. Like he can take all these guys who are like really, really intelligent players and make them excellent, teach them all this stuff they need to know. But like the Raptors kind of need like, like a linear algebra teacher. Like they're like
linear algebra. Let's back it up a little bit. I don't know.
That's even too kindergarten. Okay, you're learning like their multiplication tables.
Long division.
They need like a long division teacher. Like they need a guy who's like capable of teaching the bare minimum for learning the rest of the NBA system, the rest of like that. So maybe he's not the right guy for the job. That's not to say that he should not be in the job, because the goal is to find the right guy for the job to win a championship. The goal isn't to find the right guy for the job who can like teach young guys how to learn their way around the league and learn basic offense and stuff. But there is something to be said about that. I don't agree with this comment. I think it's a tremendously intelligent offensive system, but in order to be able to read and react, you need reading comprehension and the ability to react. I'm not sure all these guys have it yet. And is Nurse the right teacher for that? That's my question. Yeah, Josh H is right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a valid question, and especially when our subs come in, like those are the grade 10 math students. I think like it's doable with like our starting five, but it kind of falls off, and that's again, it's just going to remain to be seen when we're healthy. I mean, a positive we can take from this, and we could talk about it, is Scotty Barnes, 38 minutes, which is where he should be. 7 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, 4 blocks, 3 for 6 from downtown, 2 no-looking fast breaks, one of which resulted in Triple J pinning him, but the other one was a weird, funny dunk. Scotty continues to stand out. What did you think about Scotty tonight?
Yeah, that's a good. He had some good late game stat padding, which saved would have been an otherwise unimpressive stat line. But I think he had an all right game. I think Oren mentioned in a tweet that Siakam was going to him and kind of deferring to Scotty at the end of the game, which is an encouraging sign. And I agree with him completely. I think that the chemistry between Siakam and Barnes is the key to unlocking this offense at all.
Yeah.
And as this highlight reel plays, and we'll get a little bit more into that when we do the film, but it was an off night for Barnes and kind of salvaged by some late game. I wouldn't call them heroics, but late game performance, we'll say.
And we'll leave it at that. I'm going to slowly transition into, we got the tweet. Yeah, no shit, Nurse. For ad read, Can-Am, CPAs, full service small business accounting and tax firm with an experienced and friendly staff that can help you navigate all of your tax issues. They help you with your personal income tax. They can help you with your small businesses. If you have any questions, they'd be happy to chat with you. You can reach them at canamtax.com, or you can Google them. They come up real easily. They're our one and only sponsor, so I definitely insist you check them out. I went to H&R Block once. I'll never go back again. So try the little guy and see how that works for you. Do we have a tax man of the night, Kyle?
Yeah, I was kind of frantically scanning the box score. I think I'll go with Fred VanVleet, although I would have liked to see more of him, which isn't what you can always say about your accountant. So maybe this doesn't really fit the the theme correctly. But I think VanVleet, as always, is the most consistent Raptor, and that's kind of what you're looking for in terms of tax services. I don't need peaks and valleys, as Nurse mentioned. I need just my income tax to be delivered.
I'm going to choose Utah because for, kind of the same reason. He's in the background doing the dirty work. And maybe this would be a good segue, producer Chris, to our film. Utah is just like, he's the connective tissue at both ends of the court, which is what you want your accountants to be doing, making sure that you're on budget. Let's Chris, are we going to the Utah film?
Let me just have a look here and see what we've got.
Okay. Oh, we don't have Utah film. Whatever.
We
that's
have.
cool.
I was gonna say we definitely have some Siakam stuff.
Okay, let's go to what we got then.
Yeah, so this is the first one here. So this is Siakam trusting Scotty in theory, but the double comes from Scotty's blind side. And like this is what we were talking about earlier. Like they were doubling Fred all fourth quarter. I mean, this is in the first quarter, but these are the types of problems that an NBA defense throws at you that you need to be able to solve quickly. There's no pass there. There's nothing that Scotty can do with the ball except for kind of heave a cross court pass all the way to Utah to have it be intercepted. That needs to be someone needs to come flash the ball. Like Siakam should come down, sprint
Banton's
down.
there.
Yeah, and Banton needs to flash the ball. There are kind of no options for him here other than to eat the ball, step out of bounds, have the ball be tied up, whatever. And in theory, this would be a great situation for your offense. If you get a guy flashing there, it's 4-on-3. That's a tremendous situation for your offense.
It's a good scouting job by Memphis. Scotty doubled in the low post is okay. I think like he's so big and he can be over top. But when he's in the short corner like this, he's a little out of sorts. He's not close enough to do his little like from the forehead jumper. And he panicked. If he had waited one more second, Banton was wide open. Kyle Anderson is an excellent off-ball defender, and he made the right read. But and like the audience is saying, like over time, Scott's going to make the right move. Like this is like a pump fake pass to get the defense to move and then find the right guy, or it's a pull dribble out, right? Like he could have maybe turned and then pulled right back out again and reset. So this is going to happen more, and I think they're going to. In film room, they're going to show Scotty this and show him some of the options he has. And if anything, it's a good indicator of what will come, which is that Scotty's starting to create this centrifugal force, right? Like defenses are starting to realize that he's a problem, and they're going to start orbiting around him, which is just going to alleviate more pressure for Pascal and Fred.
Yeah, and like I see people in the comments talking about what the best way to handle this double team is. It's not even worth really getting into great detail, but someone, whether it be Banton, whether it be Siakam, whether it's Fred who just like makes a cut to the nail there, someone needs to come to the ball and make themselves available.
Yeah.
And Siakam, I hate getting on Siakam, but that's like kind of jogging over with your hands up kind of isn't really enough here. Like
Yeah.
he notices a double really. Siakam, part of dealing with the double team is everyone else in the court has to notice the double team with the same speed as the person being double teamed. And that didn't exactly happen here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Scotty could have. Yeah, I mean, this is on Scotty. He's got to be more under control. But you're right. Pascal could have made himself more available. I think Fred's supposed to stay there. He's supposed to be the release valve. There's not much you can do. Banton reads it perfectly, really, and which is that you want to split that weak side defender. You want one guy far and one guy close, and it just didn't happen. And like I said, this is something I think Scotty will not really repeat that often.
Yeah, well, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. Next one, Chris, Senior.
Yeah, and this is again, we were talking about the chemistry between Pascal and Scotty. That needs to be passed way sooner. It's so telegraphed what Pascal is doing here. Scotty probably needs to orbit kind of higher up, make himself more available, but there should be a pass way earlier in this possession to Scotty on the wing and let him do something with it because he's wide open with his hands up. And this is what we were talking.
Go ahead.
This is what we were talking about Siakam not really being an architect, being more of a read and react passer. Like I think, and this isn't a criticism of Siakam because there are very few guys in the NBA who are capable of seeing this pass, but just like the immediate swing there or the one dribble swing pass there that the 1% of the 1% best passers in the world are able to make. That is something that unlocks an NBA defense and that changes an NBA offense. And I think Siakam's working his way towards that, and he's not quite there yet.
Chris, you had a point you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, it was actually about Scotty. I feel like a couple of times in this game, and you almost see a similar thing with Siakam here, where it feels like his vision maybe outstrips his ability a little bit at times, where he's seeing the plays to be made, but he doesn't quite have the skills or the passing ability necessary yet to make those passes. And so I think it's something that for a lot of like young playmakers, that it's something that comes with time where they start to be able to make those passes and to be able to read those passes more quickly. And so I think that's what we're going to see with Scotty.
Yeah,
that was Chris, the producer. Everybody, I don't know if you've heard
I
his
was
voice
gonna say,
before. Welcome,
what a
Chris.
performance! While Chris was talking, yeah, TK is saying some like borderline racist shit in the chat.
Yeah,
TK, get
bye-bye.
that shit. Don't say that shit in our chat, and don't take advantage of us while Chris is speaking. Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna make it so that Chris is never able to speak.
Yeah,
because
don't
he has to
sneak your
moderate
racist ass
you
shit in
crazy
here.
people in the chat.
Exactly. Back to this play. There's a number of things Pascal could have done. One is he's open for the three.
Yeah.
Right? There's 8 seconds left in the shot clock. Fine, shoot it. 2 is the swing, like you're saying. 3 is Adams is not going to step up at the free throw line, right? Like that's an easy jumper. And then he could have kicked. He could have pulled up at the free throw line, or he could have driven at the free throw line and then hit Barnes. So this is just a really bad play. And I think that it is also kind of a pivot point for Siakam where like we want to see that the playmaking chops evolve. Like we can acknowledge his one-on-one ISO game is top. It's just this, and like you're saying, his passing in the moment is good as well. But like this creation and finding the open man off of his creation is something he lacks, and this play really does symbolize it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what every team wants is their best scorer to also be their best creator for others. That's like really when you have a tremendous offense going, when you have a guy who's your best scoring threat, who the whole defense gravitates towards, who's also a tremendous high IQ playmaker. And that's not the case with Pascal, but probably could be. I think he's a very hard worker and he's a generally smart basketball player. It just takes a little bit of time to learn this, and it takes time as a primary creator to learn this. So let's hope he gets there. And I get it. This looks really, really easy when we watch it 400 times in a row to say like he could shoot and he could probably do a floater, or if he just spun, whatever. But it's a little bit it's a little bit it's almost egregious to not hit Scotty right away there because he's waving his hands.
Yeah.
He's maybe the best player on the court at times for this Raptors team.
Yeah, it's certainly something. How many assists did Siakam have tonight? 5, actually, so that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Let's go to question time to close it out here. We're at the 40-minute mark. Faithful listeners, if you have some questions, throw them up there. If you want your question answered over top of everybody else's, super chat that shit. Send us some cash, or just like us and follow us and then ask the question. That's cool too.
I think what Trace 124 said here about the previous play, if we switch Scotty for Pascal there, meaning like if Pascal's the spacer in that action and Scotty's the primary ball handler, you're right. Scotty probably makes that pass. But there's another element to that, which is I don't know if the pass is there. I don't know if the help comes off of a wide open shooter like that if it's Scotty driving. The reason Siakam has all of these passes available to him is because he has tremendous gravity. And he has that gravity because he's a good scorer. Scotty's not at that level yet. That's why when you have a scorer who's a tremendous playmaker, it takes your offense to the next level. Scotty isn't at that level yet. So
no, you have to get Scotty into that position, which we saw with the dribble handoffs, which we see with the screen and roll. So yes, when he's in that position, he makes better choices, arguably, but he's not always in that ability to, or he doesn't always have that ability to create that threat for himself.
Yeah, and it's like the reason that why is no one moving when people get stalled out?
You're gonna have to ask them. I mean, that's not what basketball is. I think there is a lot of watching with these guys. There's a lot of guys wanting to get their shot. It's certainly not good basketball. You do see, I think there is something to be said for being the weak side guy that's there for the spot up. But yeah, I don't know. I don't otherwise have an answer for that. Do you, Kyle?
I'll say like it does feel a little stagnant, and I'm willing to chalk a lot of that up to the fact that these guys haven't played together a lot. And it's easy, like you watch a team like the Warriors where like Steph and Clay will just like walk by each other casually on the weak side, and Draymond will be able to hit one of those two guys because he knows exactly where they'll be and which guy's going to be in which spot. That works. Those guys can move off the ball like that because they've played together for so long. This Raptors team, with the exception of OG, Siakam, and Fred, they don't have a tremendous amount of experience playing together. So it's easier to find guys and know where guys are if the status quo is just like, you're on the wing here. Don't orbit. Don't go set a back screen for the guy in the corner and have him orbit up to the wing. Don't do any of that stuff because the ball handler isn't going to know where you're going. He hasn't played with you enough.
Well, I think it's kind of like a philosophical issue too, where you like, we're talking about Connor's mentioning like Precious being in the corner, get out of there. It's like Precious is learning how to be a more dynamic player. And it's kind of like, I think you can see them trying to think about that as opposed to trying to think about what the right NBA move is. And that's why you see a guy like Utah who is just so efficient with how he moves, when he moves, and what his spacing is. There was a great play where he was wide open for 3. And he's like standing there with his hand open. And I think Siakam totally missed him. And instead of just continually standing there, he cut ball side. And, that created just a little bit of movement for Siakam to then, I think lay it in. So that's the kind of stuff that I think, like, again, youth and lack of experience kind of causes. I don't know, Chris, is this maybe it? Oh, no, this is just general highlights. Okay, never mind. Yeah, so I think that's part of it, is just like not really understanding what your purpose is and confusing that at times. There's a question about Utah starting next game. What are your thoughts on that, Kyle?
I guess why not? It's going to be a really tough one. They're playing the Bucks. That's a really, really tough game. I think that if Svi hasn't really been offering much, but he's probably a better shooter than Yuta is. And he's probably has a little bit more off the bounce, like he can create a little bit more offensively than Yuta can. So it depends what you need, what you think you need against the Bucks. I think if you ask me if Yuta should start in general moving forward, if this is the sort of under these injury circumstances, I'd probably say yes. But I'm not sure if I want Yuta starting against the Bucks strictly because there's such a swarming defense that I think you need guys, especially when they're struggling like this. I think the Raptors need guys who can kind of create for themselves second side type thing, and I'm not sure if Yuta offers that.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a typical dilemma of like, do you want to be top heavy with your starters, or do you want to keep a dependable guy coming off the bench, And my answer would be keep him as the sixth man, close games with him for sure. I think that makes a lot of sense. But I don't know, like who you're bringing in. Like I'm not bringing Svi and Banton in together. Like I don't feel very comfortable with that. Yeah, so I wouldn't start him next game, assuming that the injuries are the same. I would keep Yuta on the bench. I still like Svi. I think
I like Svi a lot. I think
he had 2
Svi's very,
turnovers.
very good.
Him and Flynn kind of seem to make 1 or 2 bonehead turnovers a game still, and like that's kind of frustrating. But he always just finds a way to get to the rack, and that we don't have that at all. Yuta included that's not part of his game. So I don't mind Svi playing that Gary Trent Jr. role to the best he can.
Yeah, and some of the reason the offense has struggled tonight, at least, was I think they probably needed more Svi, but couldn't really afford to because they needed to get Yuta in the game. I don't want to make any serious predictions here, but I would assume that going forward, that closing lineup tonight is the exact same with Svi in place of Malachi. Nurse really gave Malachi a chance tonight, and I don't really think he offered exactly what Nick was looking for. So this might be the end of Malachi closing games. Very short run of closing games. RIP Malachi closing games Tuesday, November 30th to Tuesday, November 30th.
Yeah, and okay, we got another question here. How long before Scott takes the most shots every night? That's going to be a while, I think, to answer your question. Although he got up there, he had 16, but Fred had an unusual 13, or if he was double teamed, whatever, like, or gas. But I would say that he's not typically going to only have 13 shots a night.
Yeah, that's this question is impossible to answer because this is like a multi-year thing. Like how long before Scotty takes the most shots every night? Like I don't know what 2024 or something. Like it depends who's on the team.
Yeah, it's
I
a
imagine
hierarchy
it could be a
thing.
long time.
I think you could increase. Yeah. Okay. So this is a good question. So I was going to say, like, I think you can increase his touches. I think you can increase the number of actions he's in. Whether he takes shots out of those or not, I don't know. But I think, like, I've been harping on this for a while. Like, get him in more screening rolls, get him in more dribble handoffs, get him in some more cross actions to find him on the low post. Like, there's a dribble handoff that's successful. It's not always going to work. Teams are going to pick up on it, but I think there could be more variety that has Scotty involved in which he can, be the assist man or the secondary assist man on a lot of actions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point. I think that there's a reality in which Scotty, even though he's the obvious best player in the team, at no point in his career is the leading shot taker on his team.
Yeah, he's not that type of guy.
He could be, but as of right now, he doesn't exactly project to be.
It's not even his personality type, right? Like there's a lot of stories about him just not being interested in being the go-to shooter. He wants to do the small things, which is great, except for the fact that we have a struggling offense and we need that. So yeah, he may grow into that.
Yeah, we have like 8 guys who like doing the small things well. Like at some point, someone needs to do
Except
the
for
big
Gary.
things. I need someone out there doing the big things.
Gary likes doing big things.
Exactly. Yeah, we
Um,
need guys. Yeah, exactly. Gary loves like being that guy. I think that's part of the reason that Raptors fans adore him so much and have taken to him so quickly is that Gary has absolutely no qualms about the type of player he is. He's completely irrationally confident, and frankly, just as a watcher, like that's fun basketball to watch. Just have a guy like go out there and cook. It's like that's good basketball. I like that.
he's gotten better at choosing his spots too. He's not just like killing a possession by grinding it out.
Mauricio, most recent comment, Chris, if you could pin that, said that the Raptors bottom of the league assists. Mentioned VanVleet scores too much. How do you increase assists? Who is a playmaker role? Define roles. And we talked about this the other night. The Raps have supplemented the playmaking, you know, because they lack a real main playmaker. They've supplemented with a bunch of guys who are like all right to good playmakers, and clearly that hasn't worked. You need a guy who is that playmaking hub. And like Aiden, you mentioned earlier, and I think we've kind of alluded to this over the past month and a half, that's seems to fit Scotty's profile a lot, being a playmaking hub.
Yeah.
Scotty will be that guy, exactly, Jesse. So maybe that's where the offense needs to go. Maybe it needs to be Scotty as a playmaking hub. And that way, all of the things that are standing in the way of Scotty being the offensive hub, Pascal needing his shots or whatever, Trent needing his shots, whatever, that could still exist. Everyone could still get their shots and the offense run through Scotty.
Yeah.
That's a possibility that, could actually come to fruition.
Yeah, totally agree. Sorry, I was reading a question. I was just going to quickly say this is not going to happen. Dragic is going to get bought out if anything, unless he's included as a salary filler for something else. But Dragic is alone, I don't think, is going to get you a centerpiece. I don't know if listeners have a list of $20 million centers that are useless on another team that also are probably expiring this year, but I don't know that it's worth accumulating a contract for a third string center. Maybe Dwight Howard's available.
No, I think Dwight Powell is the most likely because that sends Dragic to the Mavericks. The Mavs can do Dwight Powell plus
the money
another
doesn't match,
asset.
does it?
No, it doesn't. They need to include another asset. And the sticking point earlier was because they didn't want to include Josh Green. No, Al Horford's good in Boston. He can stay there, and I think he's a good contributor there. But Dwight Powell's the most likely thing. The reason the Raptors have some trepidation about that is because Powell's on a multi-year deal, and I don't think the Raptors are going to be that excited about absorbing a $12 million a year center who has another year on his contract instead of just buying out Goran Dragic and letting him, live his life in Slovenia or live his life in Dallas if that's what he wants.
I don't think it was not a useless trade. We have Precious on a rookie contract. He's in his second year. We theoretically have 6 more with him if we want to. I think bringing on Dragic for a year for $20 million for him to be on the bench is not the end of the world. You could be Houston with John Wall right now. So I think we got it pretty good.
Leech Rec says ball movement, dribble handoffs isn't ball movement. You know what it is? Everything, like, ball movement doesn't just mean like they swing the ball around the top of the key. Ball movement, I think what we're talking about when we talk about ball movement in general is like movement when the defense is in rotation. The way you get the defense's rotation is bringing downhill rim pressure, forcing a help guy, and then kicking the ball out and getting the ball in movement. I mean, if you watch all the really great NBA offenses, everything's predicated around having a help defender step away from their original assignment, getting the defense to get in, force the defense to rotate and get the ball moving. So ball movement doesn't just mean like we pass the ball around the top of the key and everyone takes turns. Ball movement means like get some rim pressure and then move the ball when the defense is in rotation.
Yeah, because we did have that in the first quarter. There was a lot of passing the ball around the perimeter, and nothing was coming of it.
So if the dribble handoffs create rim pressure, that means it's ball movement. If isolations create double teams or rim pressure, that's ball movement. That's anything creates ball movement is good.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, it's all like intrinsically connected. You can't have one without the other. But I do think that this team, the ball does stick more often than it probably should with this team, especially when, no one's really, other than Fred, no one really has the ultimate green light from three or deserves it yet.
I think it's I mean, we've kind of danced around this all season, but like this team might miss Kyle Lowry like a lot. I think it's just as a leadership thing, as a ball movement thing, as as a setting example as an unselfish player. Like they really miss Kyle, and that speaks to the sheer ability, like of will of character that Kyle had, and basketball ability that Kyle had. Kyle Lowry was a tremendous player and still is for the Miami Heat. He wanted to move on. We had no option but to move on from him. That was just, we had to part ways with him. It was mutual. But this breakup's hurting the Raptors. They need a guy who's a leader. They need a guy who's unselfish. And Fred's done a good enough job. He's a reasonable facsimile of the Lowry role, but like Kyle Lowry is one of one.
Yeah, Lowry gave us a lot of bend, not break moments. Like he kind of bridged together those moments of where we struggled on either end. We're gonna close out there, Kyle. We're coming up on an hour. We don't need to talk more about this tough loss. We got Milwaukee on Thursday, and then Washington on Sunday. This is a big 7-game home stretch. We have an awful record at home. I'm not so optimistic about Thursday, but hopefully we can get some boys back to play. But we'll see. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Be sure to follow and like us as much as you can. Chris, thanks for producing as always. Good input tonight. And we'll catch you all later.